it was going to look moving forward. And one of the things we wanted to do as Enid Public Schools is offer a completely virtual option. And we checked out several different options for that. And the best option we came up with was a product called Calvert. And so we've asked our partners to join us here today on a town hall meeting to explain kind of what Calvert's all about and what to expect as parents as you go through the virtual education of your children this year. I want to remind everyone that this commitment, if you choose to go ahead and do that after this evening, will be for a full semester at a time. There will be really no option to go back to the brick and mortar setting until December and the second semester. And there's lots of reasons for that. First and foremost, it's staffing. We have to find out how to staff our buildings and know how to do that. And we can't have kids going back and forth because we will be using Enid teachers as teachers for this educational option. And so we'll be pulling some teachers out of the classroom that would normally be brick and mortar teachers, and they will be running our virtual program for us. So that's why we have to do it at a semester. Also, just want to remind everybody that because we're going to need to do a little bit of training with our teachers on Calvert, and we've had such a high interest, we won't start our virtual instruction until August 20th. We'll work out those details and obviously communicate that out through several different media sources. And then probably the most important thing that I need parents to understand is in order to staff, and because of the quick turnaround time, we're going to be pushing the application out tonight. So if you still are 100% sure that you want to do the virtual option as opposed to any other option we have for Enid Public Schools, then the application will be pushed out to those individuals that have shown interest, and we will need that application filled out by Friday. Let's see, that's the 7th at noon. And so that allows us to start planning and pulling information so that we know how to plan and staff our buildings. So at that, I think I've pretty much said the things that I need to say at this point, and I'll turn it over to Christy and Tracy because they're the experts on this product that we're here to offer you.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Christy Dorman, and I am located in Dallas. And so I'm super excited to get to talk to you up in Enid today about Calvert Learning and all the things about the virtual platform and some of the things that you can expect moving forward. I am recording this, so in the event that you want to go back and circle back around, or I'm sure that there are some families who may not could make it tonight, and that way they'll be able to circle back around. As we're moving through this, there are a lot of people on here. There are 143 participants, and that is super exciting. But as you can imagine, answering lots of questions may be difficult. So a couple of things that we can promise you. I will save this meeting chat, and I will send it over to the district so they can come up with an FAQ, because I'm pretty confident if you have a question, then there's a good chance there's other families in the district that have a question. And there are some controls at the bottom of your meeting screen. One of them is the Q&A, and the Q&A will just be delivered to my colleague Tracy Nolan, to myself, and to Randy. And we can choose to answer those live or send you direct answers to specifically. The other way that we can communicate with you easily is through the chat feature. So you can ask a question in the chat, and my colleague Tracy and or Randy can jump in and answer those questions. I've been doing that for the past few minutes. And I see a new question that just popped in that said, how do we get the application? And I think that that's going to be emailed this evening. So what I'll try to do, Randy and Tracy, is to remember to pause so that we can just find out if there are any outstanding questions for the betterment of the group. But I also know myself, and I am passionate about this stuff. And when I get in, on occasion, I don't remember to take breaks. So maybe Randy and Tracy can help keep me true to my word that I will stay I will pause. So let me set up my screens, and I'm going to share with you all about what you can look at in learning. I'm not 100% sure if I shared there. I did. Screen share. All right. Randy, can you see a young man with his thumbs up? Maybe you can give me a thumb up if that's what you see. Awesome. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about Calvert Learning tonight. What's the role of the parent in all of this? Some resources that are available for you, some expectations, some guidelines. I'm going to jump into the curriculum and then also answer your questions and at the end. Calvert is 100 years old, y'all. It's been around longer than all of us, and it has a rich history. It's used in over 90 countries in all 50 states. In 2017, though, it was completely rewritten and became fully virtual. And so we're going to talk about the virtual components. They are framed up in this screen. So right now what you're looking at is a grade 1 language arts. And you see this Fab 4 of Calvert. This is the framework that guides all our teaching and learning. And so these icons at the bottom, they're meaningful. This is a project-based curricula. So that means students are going to do everything in context. There's not going to be any of those questions, oh, Dr. Dorman, where am I ever going to use this? Because students are learning in context, so they know when they're going to use it. But there's a lot of things that they have to learn before they get to being able to do that project, and we call those learn cards. And these are not videos of adults speaking to children. Instead, they're interactive opportunities for students to move into a more or a higher depth of knowledge and understanding. The purple U is the use for mastery, and these are our tests or assessments, both short, quick tests and the more formal tests. And then finally, the show stands for the SN plus, and this is where students get to show their culminating project. And I'll show you some examples of what different projects might look like, but you're also looking down here at different units. And I can see in these units that there is a project, based on that little icon right there, there is a project, the first day of school, and it's called the best day ever. And so this first grader is going to learn how to write a story about their best day ever. And maybe that's a birthday, or maybe that's a first day of school, or maybe that's a vacation that he or she went on. And they're going to learn about setting, and they're going to learn about characters and plot, all while they're creating that project. So let's take a minute to talk about the core courses that your students are going to see. You're going to have English Language Arts, which we call ELA. And so English Language Arts, of course, includes handwriting, spelling, reading, and that's done with partnership with Pearson Redigen. And throughout the context, there will be e-texts. So again, back to that first grade, you may be familiar with the book Stella Luna. That is available as an e-text, so the student can click right in and have student read aloud, Stella Luna read aloud to them, or they can learn to read it themselves. Students will also be taking math, which is Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's Math in Focus. For social studies, students will see content from McGraw-Hill. For science, we're back to HMH. And additionally, because it is a virtual platform, students will have embedded within the platform some videos from Brain Pop and Discovery Education and Legends of Learning, so that there's interactivity available. And I am going to put in the chat a resource for you all. Notice I told myself, put the link in the chat now, because once again, I was afraid that I wouldn't remember to do it. So in the chat, I am posting a catalog of all the different courses with a little more information about each one. So you can go to first grade, second grade, and look at the specific courses. But in addition to the core content, we also have 2 electives, or specials is what we call them down here in Texas. So in Kinder 1 and 2, you've got health and PE. And then in grades 2 through 5, you've got art and picture study and PE. So those are going to be the courses your students can take this fall. So let's talk a little bit about the projects, because sometimes projects, when you tell families this is a project-based curriculum, that looks maybe a little bit different than what we expect. But our elementary curriculum both is going to be developed around these projects. And so this is just a quick snapshot of a 3rd grade science project called Time to Wake Up. And if you've had a 3rd grader, you know that they learn about Rube Goldberg machines in 3rd grade. And that's exactly what this project is. Students are given a rubric, and the rubric allows them to start with the end in mind. So projects may look a little bit like this. It may be, for your older students, it may be a research paper. Or you may have a foldable trifold with information from a project. This is a picture from a kinder or a 1st grade, and they have taken a snapshot and uploaded it to the platform. This is a PowerPoint presentation. Also, students can create videos and upload those videos. So I'm going to take a second to share with you a project video from this young man who has created his Rube Goldberg alarm clock. Now, this is a really fun video for me to share, but I would also like to point out that there are, in the rubric, it asked him to make sure that he had different changes in motions, different changes in speed, different changes in angles, and motion that went zigzag. So if you're familiar with the Rube Goldberg machine, I think that you would agree that this would wake you up.
This is my Rube Goldberg project, Time to Wake Up. So first, I will push the lever down that will release the marble and make it go in a circular motion. And then it will go down this tube, and in a fast motion, it'll loop around the loop. And then it'll travel to this orange tube, and at a slow speed, it will travel around in another circular motion until it reaches here, and it will come off, and it'll go down this point and down the ramp. And the force of the marble will push the domino, and it'll make a zigzag domino effect. And when all the dominoes reach this big blue domino, it will fall and hit this point and pop the balloon. Okay, it's time to do it. Here we go. Doing it. Yes! 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 Yes!
So that is just an example of what a project could look like. In this video, you heard Dad is all in. So we're going to talk about your role as the learning coach, or the parent's role as a learning coach in this platform, in just a minute. So while I'm switching back, Tracy, Randy, are there any questions for the betterment of the group, or are we good?
Sorry, I had one to unmute. I've been answering a few in the chat.
Awesome.
But there is a question that says, if we have not signed up for virtual platform yet, can we still enroll and fill out an application by Friday at noon? Yes. The application will be pushed out to everyone that did the initial survey, but obviously we will make it available to others through our web page and probably on our Facebook page. So we'll be pushing that out to there as well. The other question said, will the kids follow the same schedule with starting late? The schedule will be a little bit different. And Christy, if I say this wrong, or I know you'll probably cover it a little bit later, but virtual learning is a lot more self-directed. And so because they'll be following a different program, the standards and the order with which those standards will be taught will be completely different than the brick and mortar. So since it's self-paced, they won't really be behind, but they will be on a much different schedule of learning. And so, like I said, I know Christy will probably cover what that looks like a little bit later, so I'll let her do that.
Sure.
I think that's it for now.
Awesome. So there was a great question in the chat that said, are all the projects video? No, that was just one of them. Here's an example of a PowerPoint, a trifold, a paper, a picture. So they're going to look a lot of different ways. And in virtual learning, there's a lot of flexibility, like Randy said. So you're going to have a start date and an end date, and you're also going to have a pacing guide. But this is available 24/7, right? You can log in, your students can log in and work on this really any day or any time. So it does give you the availability for access. I don't know what that button is. So let's talk a little bit about the tests and what they might look like. So this is a use for mastery test. And this is back to first grade ELA. So students are learning about how to write stories. And this assessment says you learned how details in a story make it interesting. Now you will use details to tell a story that you already know. Think of a story you like a lot. That way you'll know it very well. Think about the questions about your story. It has character names. It tell the setting, and tell the events of the story or plot in order. So students can make a submission in multiple ways. Oh, sorry, the prompt says, these steps will prepare you to retell your story. Ready? Now retell your story. So students have several ways that they can respond to this. They can respond with a voice recording and upload it. If you don't have a phone that does that, there is some apps that you can use, or speakpipe.com to record an oral response and paste a link in. Students could do bullet points and type them in this feature. Students could have graphic organizers. They could have hand-drawn pictures. So there's really a lot of options for ways that students could answer these open-ended questions. That's not what I expected. So let's see, what about children with IEPs? Okay. So let's talk about your role as a family member and what you're gonna do as a parent this fall. Teachers are going to grade assessments, give feedback. Your Enid teachers are going to be super involved. They're going to respond to students about questions, provide instructional feedback on assessments. And I think that, Randy, as we get closer to start of school, I imagine y'all will have a schedule of live lessons that will come from your teachers. But you as a family member, so this, let me just give you a for example. This meeting's been going on 20 minutes. Can you imagine your kinder first or second still being engaged at this point? So you, the parent, for your kinder, for your first, for your second, you're going to be serving as the primary day-to-day teacher, providing direct instruction. So I want to be super transparent about what that lift looks like. Parents, for kinder 1 or 2, where students are learning to read as opposed to reading to learn, you're going to be committing 3 to 4 hours per day as the learning guide. However, there are a lot of resources within this platform so that you can be successful. That always spurs lots of questions. Well, I have to work. What am I going to do? Yeah, you're right. One of the great things about this is you don't have to do this between 8 to 3 every day. You can work with a schedule that will meet the needs of your specific family. And the older the student gets, the less of a time commitment the parent will have to make, or the learning coach will have to make. In addition to, for the younger ones, providing that day-to-day support, parents will also be the proctor for assessments. You'll review the graded assessments and share feedback with students that the teachers have given. And then the parent or learning guide can also contact the teacher if any questions regarding the curriculum come up. And then what would a good student do, right? A student's going to complete a lesson in a timely fashion, completes a lesson with honesty and integrity, incorporates teacher feedback, and informs his learning guide and or parent if they need to reach out to the teacher. So there are resources, parents, as you're the learning guide, there are resources embedded. I worked with a whole lot of friends this past spring and their children. I was a math teacher for 15 years, and I found myself supporting my friends and their children because parents were like, what are we doing? And so that you won't have that feeling, we have created several things within the platform to give you resources. And the first one is called Teaching Notes. And in this teaching notes, of course, there's answer keys. There are also instructional support videos. Let's say in 4th grade math, you didn't learn to multiply with bar graphs. There's an instructional video there so you can see it, because I promise you, you'll understand it. You just need to see it. But there are also teaching tips and open-ended questions that you can ask of your child to support him or her in that learning process. And they are abundant. They are between every single activity your child will be doing. We also have a website available called the Parent Success Zone, where you can go in and get live help 2 hours a day. Where you're like, hey, we're not getting this concept. And so those links will be shared with you, and you can jump right in and get some help. We'll also be doing a parent webinar orientation after you all have your logins, so we can teach you how to use it, how to navigate it, where to go for what. We also have technical support available from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So let's say you're sitting there and you can't submit an answer, or your video won't load, or for whatever other reasons we've all been we're tooling along in a web browser, and all of a sudden it doesn't work as expected. So those people are there answering the phone between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., or you can email them and they will get back to you. I will say from experience, the phone is significantly faster than the email. There are live people answering the phone. It's not like calling a big old call center at some large vendor. There are 20 people, lots of them former educators in there, ready to help you, and technical specialists ready to help you progress, because we want your students working just like you do. So let's talk about preparation. When you log in, first day of school, what does the first day of school look like? Well, your day one would be highlighted, and your student would click in here to do his or her ELA, and then come back to their schedule, and here we go right back into math, and then here's science, and then here's social studies. So when you think about the time commitment that your students will be spending learning, it's going to be about the same as what they would have in the brick and mortar school, between 60 and 90 minutes for ELA, and 40 to 45 minutes in the other content areas. So it's super easy for a student to navigate and pop in. So let's talk about some expectations and maybe how we can partner with you to set up a program that's successful for you. Attend 5 out of the 7 days. Attendance recorded. The leadership at Enid still has to record attendance. School is still required in the state of Oklahoma, so you still have to attend. Now, do those 5 days have to be the same 5 Monday through Friday? It can look a little different because the platform is available. Work to completion in a timely manner. So you're going to have that daily schedule, that calendar that I just showed you, and that'll show you what you need to do each day. This is important for you and your student because you really don't want to fall behind. Although there's some flexibility within the pacing, we don't want you to fall behind more than 2 weeks. And I will just tell you, because of the person I am, if I was 2 weeks behind, I'd be up knots. If a student begins to fall behind and has not communicated with their online teacher, somebody at the school is going to call you. And it's not going to be a teacher. It's going to look very similar to if your student wasn't present for 2 weeks. And then we would encourage at least weekly communication with your online teacher. In the platform, there's a way to reach out to the teacher. You can email, call, and I'm sure that Enid will talk about some best practices once they have trained up their teachers about what this is going to look like and made those finalized decisions. But your virtual teacher from the school district is going to be a great resource for you. So please, communication is going to be key. We would suggest setting academic goals each week. Write them down. Keep it in a place where it's visible so you know what you're working towards. Now, this says spend at least 4 hours per day, 5 days a week. Sometimes when I put this up there, the chat blows up. Well, I don't have 4 hours. Isn't that boring? What do we? Okay, it doesn't have to be 4 concurrent hours. It doesn't mean log in 9 to 1 straight through and stare at a screen. Not at all. But, build in breaks, build in different learning opportunities for your students, but we would suggest establishing a regular routine. So maybe from 9 to 10, you all work on English language arts. And then maybe from 10 to 11, 10 to 10:45, you do math. And create a schedule that's going to work for the cadence of you as the learning guide and your student. And then follow that routine. And when the teacher gives feedback, read and listen to it with the learning guide so families and students are both listening to the feedback, and create a plan to incorporate the feedback. Build in study breaks. So that's referring to what I had earlier when about 4 hours concurrently. And if it's possible within your house, if you can set aside a dedicated space for schooling to keep interruptions to a minimum. On March 13th, 2020, I came home from work, and so did my husband, and so did my 10th grade stepson. And we were all in the dining room, and it was not great for any of us, mostly because me. I was like, hey, what are you working on? What are you doing? You got an email? How's it going? Because that's who I am. So if you can set a dedicated space to minimize those interruptions, I think that it will be a great implementation for you and your family. And families, when it's time to take a test, the parents or the proctors, to make sure that students do show what they've learned in the lesson. And sometimes it's really good idea, parents, to review a lesson in the day in advance and read the teaching notes prior to working with your child. It kind of depends on what will work for you and what the fluidity is. And then allow time to reflect on lessons and decide what worked and what you might want to change the following week. So I'm going to log in to the system now, and I'm going to show you what a student experience looks like. But I'm also going to pause for a moment and ask if there's any questions.
So Christy, I have a few here to address.
Sure.
So there are a lot of questions about Chromebooks and whether or not devices will be provided. You will be provided a device for each child that enrolls in Calvert. I will tell you at this point, I don't know 100% if it will be a Chromebook or if it will be an iPad. And the reason for that is we are waiting on our order for Chromebooks, just like many school districts across the United States. We've had an order in for about 2.5 months, and like many school districts who had to go completely virtual through the spring or are providing these options through this next fall semester, as you can imagine, just like everything else, things are backlogged and we are awaiting that order. So the idea is that we will provide a Chromebook, but the truth is it will be a Chromebook or an iPad. And that's just kind of where we're at in the supply chain here at this time. Christy, there's been some questions about school supplies, and I may let you address that because I'm not 100% familiar with that.
Sure.
Let me scan through this. I think you've answered some of these other ones. There's questions about if I have multiple children, how do I make time? So Christy,
I can answer that too.
I don't know if you mentioned that, but that's one of the things that parents are going to have to decide on. So anyway, I'll let you go ahead and go down that road, and we'll.
Sure.
I think that's mainly the questions I have at this point.
So when I go into the platform, I'll show you a supply list and where you can find it. I will also share that with Randy and the others at Enid, but there's nothing in the supply list that wouldn't be a non-traditional school supply. Colors, map colors, paper, folders, those type things. Most of the other, if it's a project, the projects are done with the rounding house items. We don't want families to have to go out and make an investment to do a project. And so I will send that over and you all can post it. And so when you think about multiple kids, do I have to spend 3 hours with my kinder and then 3 hours with my first and 3 hours with my second? And the answer is no. Just like a teacher can work one-to-many, so can you as the facilitator here. If you have a kindergartner and a first grader and you're looking at a 3 hour working with them, it may take you 3 hours and 10 minutes. But you can work one-to-many. It's just that as students are learning about motor skills, think about, learning how to hold a pencil. You can teach multiple kids how to do that at the same time, but there does have to be an adult there to teach them. So you're not looking at doubling and quadrupling your time based on your children. And I also saw one in the chat that said, can I start this at 3 p.m.? And the answer is yes. This is available 24/7. So you can work on this at your, at what works for you. And I will also say, I know that there's some questions about devices, but this is mobile optimized. So it doesn't matter if you're working on a phone or an iPad or a laptop or a Chromebook. The experience is going to work for you all. So I've logged in to a student experience, and you can upload an avatar here. And there's some things available to you, including announcements from your teacher may land here. And you can scroll down, and now this student is enrolled in upper grades in a different part of our academy, but I wanted to show you what the login would look like. And I'm going to come down here to Ed Options 5th grade, and I'm just going to click. This is how you're going to do it. There'll be science, math, English, and you'll just launch it, and it'll start spinning, and it will land into Ed Options' science class. And I'm not going to wait for it. I'm just going to pop right on over here to the interface. And so you can see your classes in that same daily schedule that you saw. And so I'm just going to jump right in here into the day 3 project best day ever. And I'm going to show you some of the features that are available within the platform. So I'm looking right now at 1st grade English language arts. And this says project description. And this is the whole thing in 1st grade English language arts. The first project is students are writing a story about their best day ever. So we start with characters and settings, but you might think, Christy, are you kidding? My 1st grader can't read this. Okay. Your 1st grader is going to find this button really, really quickly. Check it out.
Project, the best day ever, project description.
So there is read to them, read with them. If the learning guide is not immediately available and right there to read with them, and that's fine. Also, it can be translated into Spanish, Chinese, and Arabic, and that will translate the text as well as the speaker.
Descripción del proyecto.
So
¿Qué tiene cada historia?
So that's available to you as well. So as students move through, they see a story called Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And then students are prompted, what's your favorite thing about the story? Where does it take place? What happens? Tell the story to your learning guide and draw your favorite part of the story. Then show your picture to your learning guide. And right here, I see a little toggle and it says teaching notes. So I'm actually not, I didn't go into Ed Options' class. I cheated a little bit and saved some time and logged in as a learning guide. So this is mimicking what a parent would see. And here are the teaching notes in between every piece of what the student will be doing. Your student should identify Goldilocks and the Bears as characters. And there's a paragraph about that. Reinforce the vocabulary of character and setting and plot. Ask your students to talk about kinds of story he or she likes. So this is dialogue for you and your children. And then the unit will help you get ready to tell your story as a student. And there's the rubric provided of what the story should have. Show why the day was good, have at least 2 characters, tell where events took place, have a beginning, middle, and end, and show what characters say, do, think, and feel. And that is presented here in this rubric. So students have that available, again, starting with the end in mind. So as students move forward, if you've had a 1st grader, you may be familiar with Stella Luna. And so the first lesson is let's meet Stella Luna. And so before we meet Stella Luna, though, students are going to listen to a poem about a bat named Batty. Also, in between reading the text and the activity for the student, guide your student in reading Batty. So I'm going to turn these teaching notes off. And now I'm in the student experience, and I'm actually going to open up Stella Luna and show you what that virtual e-text looks like. But what students are going to be doing here, talk about the story with your learning guide. Name something that happened at the beginning, something that happened at the middle, and something happening at the end of the story. So as Stella Luna is loading, I also will tell you that phonics are taught around Stella Luna. We start with the short A sound, M, S, and T, and there are picture cards, M, man, S, sock, T, tub. So you're going to see phonics delivered around Stella Luna. You're also going to see print uppercase and lowercase around Stella Luna. Well, and you're going to see, circling back, look at the picture you drew, what was it about, and retell the story of that picture. So students will have the availability of the e-text, and I did see a question that said, is the virtual learning free? And the answer is yes. This is a part of Enid School District, so this is a part of your learning option this fall. So students will have this e-text of Stella Luna where they can bookmark, so they don't have to go through these leading pages like I'm doing right here. They can also change it to a 2-page view so that it mimics an actual book. And there is a read aloud here as well.
In a warm and sultry forest, far, far away, there once lived a mother fruit bat and her new baby.
So if you're not familiar with Stella Luna and you have a first grader, you're really going to get familiar with it. Because it's read 3 to 4 times. We talk about why is mother bat capitalized, say bat, that's the short A sound. What's the setting, what's the plot, what's the characters? And then it's repeated with toad and frog. And it's continued to build out. So we are about 10 minutes away from wrapping up. So I'm going to pause again for questions, if there are any.
So, Christy, I apologize if you said this, but I've been trying to answer
I know.
questions, and so some of my attention has been drawn towards that.
No problem.
I've had several questions about if a child finishes early, they move ahead. What is that possible? Or
Absolutely.
do they need to stay on pace?
No, they can move ahead.
Okay, they can move ahead. And then what about if a child happens to be either a little bit behind or a little bit advanced of the curriculum at their grade level? We know that many children missed a lot of school from March of last year through now, and we know they're probably behind in some areas. So what's that look like through Calvert?
So I would think that would come exactly like it would in the brick and mortar class, in partnership with, the teachers and placement appropriately. I don't know, Brandy, if you all use different resources in your district, but I know that you'll have exact path available for help with placement. So I think it's very common to have students placed in different areas based on their needs, and that's super easy to do.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to scan some more. So one of the questions that's been asked several times, and this is something that I stated early on, because we have a high interest in virtual learning right now, and that's understandable, there probably will be some adjustments to staff at the buildings, brick and mortar, meaning that class sizes will adjust. And we've had a few parents ask if they do virtual for a semester, but then want to go back to the brick and mortar setting, say in December, will they be guaranteed their spot back in the brick and mortar setting? The honest answer to that is no. We do class size equalization throughout the district, so nobody is ever 100% guaranteed to go to their home school. We try to accommodate parents as best we can, but if we don't do class size equalization, we end up with some kindergarten classes that have 16 and some that have 29. And that's not fair to teachers, it's not fair to students. And so while we will do everything we can to try to equalize those classes and put those children back into, or while we'll do everything to try to put those children back into their home school, the first priority will be to equalize classes. And so there is no guarantee your child will go back to their home school at the semester. That's the best answer I can give you. And I know that's probably not 100% popular, but we have to staff accordingly. And this virtual option definitely plays a part in that. Another question is, can we choose between an iPad or a Chromebook? That decision will be made for you by the district. The intent is at some point throughout the district to go completely to Chromebooks, kindergarten through 12th grade, but because of the lack of supply of Chromebooks right now, we still have iPads in our classrooms in pre-K through 2nd grade. So kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, a student very well could end up with an iPad for the short term. But the idea is to go to a Chromebook if possible, but that decision will be made by the district and not individual parents. I think online will be, just hitting the enrollment again real quickly. The enrollment will be pushed out basically after this meeting, and it's a Google form, so you need to have access to Google. And you can fill that out online, and that will be what we use to kind of finalize the enrollment process. But everyone will also be getting a phone call from the school site to 100% make sure that that's what you really want to do, because once you make the decision in enrollment, and once we make the staff moves, we will not be able to move students back to the brick and mortar because we just won't have teachers available. I think, Christy, that there's some other things with username and password and stuff like that, but to me that's a little bit premature. We'll push that information out after we finalize enrollment. And so unless you have something different to say to that, Christy, then I think that's the best answer with the
Sure.
passwords and
They'll
things
be
like
coming.
that.
They'll be coming. Students and parents will get unique passwords, and you'll have all the login instruction. And we will also host the first or second day of school, or maybe both evenings, parent orientation for you as well.
Christy, another question that's come about, and I about missed this, so I apologize.
No problem.
But there have been lots of questions about children on IEPs.
Sure.
Since you still are a Enid public school student, then if you have a child that is on an IEP, it will require some adjustment to that IEP, but we will still be offering support for your child. It will obviously look different because you're not going to be face-to-face. We have lots of children that have speech that they go to, and we actually have a virtual option for speech that we've been using in the district for several years now. So my feeling is that that would be an option for a lot of those parents that do have that service offered. If it's something like physical therapy or occupational therapy, obviously we'll have to have an IEP meeting and make those adjustments. But the special ed department will be reaching out to those parents that commit 100% to virtual, and we'll be adjusting the IEPs as needed.
Awesome. So there's a couple of few more questions, Randy, that maybe you can address via email, or specific needs that are specific to one or two separate instances as opposed to the greater good. And Anne has asked if this has been recorded, and the answer is absolutely. We would definitely want to be able to share this with any other stakeholders from the district who weren't able to meet with us. The recording will come to me, and then I will certainly share it over to Randy this evening. Thanks so much, y'all, for coming tonight and learning a little bit about Calvert Learning. As a parent and as an educator, I'm very passionate about project-based learning because of the context, because of the real world, because students have to explain what they've learned. And I think that the learning is solid, the rigor is robust, and I think you're going to love it.
Christy and Tracy, thank you for being our partner in this. This is a brave new world for Enid Public Schools to offer this to elementary students. I'm not going to lie to anybody that's out there. As an elementary teacher and elementary principal for 15 years, and obviously the assistant superintendent of elementary here in Enid, I believe in face-to-face teaching, or else I wouldn't be doing my job. but I also believe that for many families, especially during this time, virtual is a valid option. And so if you can support all of the parameters really that's been laid out tonight, then I know you'll be successful with that. And if not, then obviously Enid Public Schools will welcome you back into the school setting when it's time. And so this is a tough time for all of us. So I thank you for your patience. I thank you for your questions. We'll get to them as we can. I know when we're never going to answer all of the questions because this pandemic has, every time we get an answer, it causes 10 more questions. And I've been working since March to even find out what all the questions are, and we're still finding new ones every day. So thank you for your understanding. Thank you for your time, and we'll be pushing that enrollment out, and we need to get that solidified by Friday. So there is an urgency to this because we still have lots of decisions to make as a district. So thank you for your time. And with that, Christy, I'm going to say we're going to go ahead and end the meeting, and we'll get this video that we've recorded pushed out to individuals and get it as many of the answers out there as we can as well. So thank you for your time.
Good evening.